This is going to sound like a satirical headline or something straight out of The Onion, but no. President-elect Donald Trump just gave a press conference where he took the stage and floated the idea of changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. He was then asked if he can promise the world he'll stay away from military and economic pressure on the Panama Canal and on Greenland. He said no, he can't promise that. I want to break down the implications of this on NATO, on global affairs, what Russia and China will take from this, and most importantly of all, the effect this has on the American psyche. But first, let's listen to this clip. Make sure you drop a like and drop a blue heart to help boost this video.
Of $50 to $60 trillion worth of assets, we're going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which has a beautiful ring that covers a lot of territory. The Gulf of America, what a beautiful name. And it's appropriate. It's appropriate. And Mexico has to stop allowing millions of people to pour into our country. They can stop them.
All right, let me give you some raw analysis on this. Donald Trump cannot unilaterally rename the Gulf of Mexico. The U.S. cannot unilaterally rename the Gulf of Mexico. It is a shared body of water bordered by the United States, Cuba, and Mexico. Naming conventions for territories like this require international consensus among multiple countries, and Trump isn't going to get that by coming out and doing stuff like this. But that's exactly the point. Trump's rhetoric isn't about practical policy or actually getting things done. It's about stoking nationalism and projecting dominance while not actually making any more moves. And here's where it becomes an international issue, because when Trump starts making these bold, unilateral, broad stroke statements, it undermines America's credibility as an ally. Our NATO allies are already wary after Trump's first term and some of the rhetoric he uses towards them, but they'll see this as yet another sign that the U.S. under Trump is unreliable, it's unpredictable, that we cannot rely on the United States, and that will leave a vacuum for other countries to become world leaders. And by other countries, I mean Russia and Iran, BRICS. They are building an alliance currently to rival the U.S., and Trump is playing right into their hand while trying to stoke his own level of nationalism in America. Let's jump over to this clip where Trump is asked straight up, will he stay away from military and economic pressure on Greenland and the Panama Canal? And this is important to listen to, even if you don't like to listen to Trump. It's important to hear how this question and answer, how they're phrased.
Please.
President, thank you. Wanted to touch on the world on fire that you mentioned, but let's start, if we could, with your references to Greenland and the Panama Canal, so forth. Can you assure the world that as you try to get control of these areas, you are not going to use military or economic coercion?
No.
And can you tell us a little bit about what your plan is? Are you going to negotiate a new treaty? Are you going to ask the Canadians to hold a vote? What is the strategy?
Yeah, I can't assure you. You're talking about Panama and Greenland. No, I can't assure you on either of those two. But I can say this. We need them for economic security. The Panama Canal was built for our military. I'm not going to commit to that now. It might be that you'll have to do something. Look, the Panama Canal is vital to our country. It's being operated by China. China. And we gave the Panama Canal to Panama. We didn't give it to China. And they've abused it. They've abused that gift. It should have never been made, by the way. Giving the Panama Canal is why Jimmy Carter lost the election.
Okay, let's just back up for a second. He's asked, can you assure the world that you won't use economic or military pressure when trying to get Greenland or the Panama Canal? And he unequivocally says no. Just think about the message this sends to the world, not only to our allies, but also our enemies. The U.S. has repeatedly condemned Russia for its invasion of Ukraine, and we've repeatedly told China, hey, you can't just aggressively dominate territory in your sphere. That is not how international law works. But how can we maintain the moral high ground when Trump openly talks about military and economic pressure on other countries? This is the exact type of rhetoric that authoritarian countries love to hear from the U.S. because it creates this permission structure for them to do whatever the hell they want. And on the other side of that, our allies, our NATO allies, hear this, and they think the U.S. is incredibly unreliable. I will be surprised if NATO makes it through the next 4 years with the leader of NATO. Whether you like it or not, the U.S. is essentially the leader in NATO. We put the most amount of money into the weapons, into the protection of NATO, and the leader is now talking about invading other NATO countries. Let me remind you guys that Denmark is a part of NATO and that Greenland is a part of Denmark. So when Donald Trump is talking about leveraging economic or military force, it's absolutely absurd. And even the Trump supporters will say, oh, he just says stuff. It's a negotiation tactic. He's trying to gain leverage over other countries. It's from the art of the deal. That's equally as worse. The president-elect of the United States, who's going to take office in about 2 weeks, is out there using this type of rhetoric when he doesn't even plan on acting on it, which I don't want him to, of course. I don't want the no new wars guy to start another world war. It's funny, he spent the last few years talking about World War III, and now he's actually trying to stoke it. But going back to my point, even to the Trump supporters who say that it's a leverage or negotiation tactic, I would say that is equally as bad for the US president-elect to be throwing random stuff out there that will weaken our alliances and mainly just showed that we don't have a reliable president. I think unreliable is almost downplaying it. Is there a level below unreliable? Because that's what Trump is. He is an absolute dirtbag who lies about every single thing. It's kind of like the Hitler comparison is incredibly heavy-handed, but Winston Churchill refused to even negotiate or speak with Hitler because he knew that Hitler was a liar who would go back on his word, and that if you cede even an inch to somebody like Hitler, it's basically just appeasement. So I'm not saying that Trump is like that at all. I sometimes think that it's too heavy-handed because Trump doesn't have genocidal intentions against Jewish people from what we know, but he definitely does use the same expansionary rhetoric. Let's take a listen to this last clip.
That's a nice return. That's a nice return.
Today announced that it will stop putting fact checks on posts on its website. And Meta said today it would stop putting fact checks on its website and instead allow community to fact check.
Well, I watched their news conference, and I thought it was a very good news conference. I think they've come a long way. Meta, Facebook. I think they've come a long way. I watched it. The man was very impressive. I watched it on Fox. I'm not allowed to say that. Say it?
Do you think he's directly responding to the threats that you have made to him in the past?
Probably. Yeah, probably.
He's saying probably. Probably Mark Zuckerberg is directly responding to the threats that Trump has made in the past. Remember, Trump wanted to jail Mark Zuckerberg for some vague idea of how he leveraged Facebook to help Democrats. Meanwhile, Elon Musk is leveraging Twitter to the fullest extent. Now we have officially lost Facebook because what Mark Zuckerberg said is that he's going to move people from California. He's going to move the team from California over to Texas so that they are more bipartisan. But doesn't that just mean you're moving from a blue state to a straight red state? Wouldn't you want to move to something where it's a little bit more equal, not a purely red state? Donald Trump Jr. tweeted, Greenland coming in hot. Well, actually, really, really cold. Right now, Donald Trump Jr. and Charlie Kirk are in Greenland, I guess, campaigning on behalf of Trump. It's just insane. And he has a Trump bobblehead. Really, really cool, I guess. Not at all, but if you guys appreciated this video, if you enjoy what I do, drop a like, subscribe to help boost this message. I'll talk about this more over the next few weeks, but I love you guys, appreciate you guys. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.